Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. In this particular one, we're going to be talking about energy, specifically electricity. I also included one water stock because I wanted to make the "what are you talking about" pun. Anyway, typical disclaimer, and then we'll hop right into it. Going to zoom in so that you can read. It's also probably going to be in the description for my video. Okay, so a lot of people who are talking about AI talk about energy. If you don't know, the way that AI is based on are data centers. And those data centers require a tremendous amount of electricity in order to run. Now, to break it all down, the way that this AI stuff really works is you have a whole bunch of computers that are doing tons and tons of computation, tons of calculations behind the scenes. And then what happens is they use up a lot of electricity because you're running these things for days and days and days at a time just so that they keep doing all the calculations. And when you use up a lot of electricity, you also generate a lot of heat. If you have a gaming PC, you know all about, or you might know about heat because your computer will generate a lot of it as you're playing games on your PC. If you have a laptop, your computer might get really hot after you keep using it to watch Netflix for 20 hours instead of studying. If you have any kind of appliance in your home, like an oven, yeah, those are going to use a lot of electricity in order to heat up the food. A microwave uses up a lot of electricity. So heat and electricity pretty closely tied together in this particular case, because as these AI systems are using a lot of electricity, you have to move away that heat somehow. Otherwise, it's going to get so hot that it can potentially cause fires, it can cause stuff to melt and chips to malfunction. It's not great. So the solution to this is to use water cooling in some of the data centers or in some of the places that people have a lot of computation that they're running. The water moves through a bunch of tubes and it goes to these really hot areas. And then because the heat just keeps bumping up against the cold water, the water is naturally absorbing some of that heat. And then what you do is you take that heat that is getting bumped up against the water in the tubes, and the water's moving the entire time. So it pumps through these pipes, and then it goes somewhere. And then when it goes somewhere outside, it cools off. What you need to understand is that AI consumes a lot of electricity, generates a lot of heat, and needs to stay cool. That's the main takeaway. So when we look at the America versus China situation, China has a ton of people, probably at least at 4 times, if I remember correctly, or 3 times as many people as in the US. So their energy infrastructure has to be a lot more sustainable if they want to give everybody the same access to things like technology, computers, etc. Now, what happens right now is AI tends to follow the same cycle that a lot of things in tech follow. There's often a tech bubble, and then there's a boom and bust cycle. So there's some sort of boom like the .com boom. Whoa, .com, wow, website, look at this, the whole world's connected. And then all of a sudden there's a bust because people realize, oh, pets.com is probably not worth $1 billion. Well, I don't remember what exactly examples of that were, but I just chose that off the top of my head. I don't even know if pets.com is still a thing. I'm pretty sure it's not. Yeah, it's not. Okay, cool. So anyway, as we were discussing about energy, I wanted to dive into some of the companies that are supplying the electricity to these data centers. Now, there's one in particular, Southern company, which seems to be interested in building out more infrastructure for all of these AI projects. As much as there is a lot of boom and bust, I think that in general, there's probably going to be a lot of utility of AI in the future, just like there's a lot of utility to the internet. In the early days, people said, oh, this internet thing isn't going to have any feet to take off. Or any wings to take off. Sorry, that's a weird analogy. There's there's always going to be some amount of people who are really negative and say, oh, it's absolutely useless or it's not going to be good because XYZ. But generally, progress is made because people find new and novel ways of using it that fundamentally change the way we operate. Nobody could have probably imagined how much we use and rely on technology today, maybe about 50 or 100 years ago. Well, 50 was 1975. There were some actually pretty good predictions back then. So yeah, maybe like 100, 200 years ago, they're still just thinking, oh, well, flying cars, that'd be cool. So let's come back to energy. Southern Company has a reasonable, I don't know if you would call 24, 25 price to earnings ratio to be reasonable, but they have a somewhat reasonable price to earnings ratio compared to most of the other stocks out there. Right now, the stock market, again, hitting all-time highs. Everything is very high in valuation, but it could be a bubble. So be careful about that. 3% dividend, not bad. If you put your money into SCUV, I think you can get 4 point something percent. And that's also not, it's not taxed at some level. I don't remember if it's federal or if it's federal and state, but if you only care about the dividend, don't come to this stock. I'm just saying Southern Company might be potentially a long play if you believe that AI is going to really depend on energy and people are really going to want to pour billions and billions of money into that stuff. The same can be said with a couple of other groups like Portland General Electric Co. Now, PG&E I just threw on here because I thought, okay, well, I live in California. PG&E is around here. They do utilities and electricity stuff. I looked at their dividends, didn't look great. They already declared bankruptcy before when there were a bunch of fires a couple years back. Now, the reason why they had fires was because there were some power lines that had issue. And then those power lines ended up causing fires that ended up causing a lot of tragedy. Are they going to have legal troubles with fires again, especially with global climate change, a lot of warming temperatures, potential high risks of fires? I don't know. I threw it on here, though, just to, for you to think about. And then there's I can't even say this, Entergy Corp, I guess. Now, they're the suppliers for energy when Meta wanted to build this $10 billion AI center in Northeast Louisiana. I think that this one might be interesting because there is a specific provider and Meta is really gung-ho about going all in on AI. So I don't see them as a bad investment, but I do think that this low dividend is not something you should be overly concerned about. I think that what really matters is just right now, how are they valued compared to how much money they could make from Meta and, other large companies that provide these kinds of capital for infrastructure. Now, I don't have any other things out here. I just wanted to talk about electricity and say electricity is kind of like the shovels during the gold rush. Now, if you don't know, during the California gold rush, lots of people came to California in order to dig for gold. Well, mostly the West. So that includes other places like Colorado too. What ended up happening was the people who actually made money the most consistently tended to be the people who sold shovels, pickaxes, and supplies to all of these people who are trying to go and strike gold. So this is one of the reasons why a lot of people like NVIDIA, because NVIDIA creates these semiconductors that are so important. Oh, I'm sorry, not semiconductor, the chips. They're these chips that are just so important for these different kinds of tech initiatives, specifically machine learning with artificial intelligence. Now, if you don't care about that and you want to go for something that seems more like something you can understand, as Warren Buffett says, don't invest in things that you don't understand. At the very least, I think it's relatively intuitive to think about electricity and how much people are willing to spend on electricity, how much it costs to build stuff like big buildings. So there's food for thought. Again, none of these are investment advertisements or endorsements. I just wanted to throw these out here because I thought that it'd be interesting to talk about as you hear about all these AI initiatives and all this hype around it. And then I threw in American Water Works because why not? They're a big water utility company. They handle water stuff, I guess. Yeah. Maybe they have a partnership with one of those AI data centers or something. I don't know. Okay, cool. I threw it in there just so that I could make the pun again. That's all it. I think that's about it for today. Yeah, that's it. All right, cool. Thanks so much for your time. I'll catch you in the next one. Sorry about rambling a little bit. I'll try to clean up the format and be more concise. Thanks.